Hello, and welcome to the Night Sky Reader. I'm here with a story to help you relax, meditate, or gently drift to sleep. Tonight, Constellations in the Condenser. Settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin. The key turns softly in the lock, and the room greets you with the scent of dried apple chamomile and the faint tick of cooling copper. You step inside, closing the door behind you with a hush that seals out the last of the day's noise. Your hand finds the switch for the task lamp, and amber light pools across the workbench, revealing the copper kettle's dull glow, the glass condenser's clear spiral, and the shallow cedar sorting tray waiting beneath the skylight. You breathe in slowly. The chamomile is here, stored in sealed jars along the back wall, but its scent has settled into the wood, into the grain of the room itself, arriving before thought, before the email you reread 4 times at the stoplight. Your pulse is still keeping the pace of the day, quick and uneven, but the still room offers only quiet surfaces and simple tasks. You set your bag down. You remove your jacket and hang it on the wooden peg, feeling the weight leave your shoulders. You look up. Through the small skylight set into the angled ceiling, a few sharp stars prick the dark. They are quiet points, asking nothing of you. The glass is cool, faintly misted at the edges where the room's warmth meets the night. When you look down, their faint reflections already live in the glass of the condenser coil, bending slightly in the curve of the spiral like moving punctuation. The still room does not need you to solve anything tonight. It only asks that you follow one complete circular process, slowly, from beginning to end. Your hands move toward the cedar tray without deciding to move. You lift the glass jar of dried chamomile from the shelf, feeling the smooth weight of it, the rubber seal cool against your palm. The jar is labeled in clean black letters, Chamomile, Lot 2411. You unscrew the lid, and the scent deepens, hay-sweet and slightly dusty, with an edge of summer fields compressed and waiting. You pour the chamomile heads onto the sorting tray, and they tumble and settle against the shallow lip with a sound like dry rain on wood. In the lamplight, the pale yellow flower heads catch the glow and roll like small moons. Some are perfectly intact, their white petals radiating from golden centers. Others have lost a few petals, showing the geometric precision of the seed head beneath. You rest your fingertips on the edge of the tray, feeling the warmth of the cedar, the slight texture of the grain running in long parallel lines. You begin to sort. Gently, you move through the pile. You are looking for stray stems, for the darker bits of leaf that slipped through the drying screen, for anything that is not the flower itself. The work requires no thought, only attention. You lift a thin stem, brown and brittle, and set it aside in the small ceramic discard bowl. You find a chamomile head that feels heavier than the others, more intact, and you cup it for a moment in your palm. It weighs almost nothing. You can feel the slight tackiness at the center where essential oils have concentrated during the drying. The sound fills the space without demanding attention. The dry whisper of herb against wood, the soft click of a flower head rolling to rest, the faint creak of the cedar tray as you shift it slightly to catch better light. You glance up through the skylight. The edge of a constellation has shifted since you entered, one bright star now centered in the frame. When you look back to the condenser, you notice how the reflected star points have moved along the spiral coil, tiny lights caught in the glass like beads on an invisible thread. Your fingers continue. One stem, another chamomile head, this one perfect, a small piece of dried leaf. Your breath has naturally lengthened without you noticing when the change happened. There is an urge to hurry, to push through this step and arrive at the warmth of the tea, but the room offers no way to skip ahead. You choose the careful, slow selection of each flower. The pile of sorted chamomile grows into a neat mound, pale and luminous against the cedar's worn surface. You pause. You wipe your fingertips on the linen towel and look at the accumulation of your work. Enough. The word settles into your chest without effort. Not the perfectionism that kept you revising the same paragraph until midnight last Tuesday. Just enough. You gather the sorted flowers and transfer them to a small glass dish, watching them tumble and resettle, the lamplight catching each papery petal. With the sorting complete, you move to the next step. You measure a portion for bruising, letting your hands weigh the flowers rather than counting or calculating. The small brass gram scale sits nearby, and if your hands hesitate, you watch its needle drift and settle with a tiny shiver, the mechanism finding its balance. The sound is a whisper of metal on metal, precise and final. You lift the measured chamomile and transfer it to a shallow wooden bowl, smooth and darkened with age. You bruise the flowers lightly, not crushing, not pulverizing, just pressing with your palms or the rounded end of a wooden pestle to break the cell walls and invite the volatile oils out. Between your palms the chamomile gives slightly, a soft resistance followed by release. The scent changes immediately. What was dried apple becomes something warmer, fuller, blooming into honey hay with an undertone of summer heat. You lean closer and inhale. The aroma rises toward your face, sweet and complex, carrying memory without asking you to examine it. You set the pestle down and wipe your hands on the towel again. There is a faint herbal dust on your palms, a yellow-green tint that smells of fields and careful harvest. You hold your hands under the light for a moment, noticing the stain, the way your skin has absorbed the scent. You rinse your hands in the small sink, feeling the cool water wash away the dust but not the fragrance, which lingers warm and close. You look up through the skylight. The constellation has continued its drift, now angled toward the far edge of the glass. The stars are steady, unhurried, marking time the way water marks stone. When you look back down, the bruised chamomile waits in its bowl, ready for heat and water. You lift the copper kettle, feeling its weight shift, and carry it to the sink. You turn the faucet and fill the kettle with cool water, listening to the change in tone as the hollow metal fills, the pitch rising and then steadying. You place the kettle on the heating element and turn the dial. The element glows faintly beneath the copper, a suggestion of warmth that will build slowly. You wait. You do not check the time. The first tiny whisper of heat meeting water arrives, a low murmur you feel as much as hear. While the water warms, you prepare the workspace. You arrange your tools in a deliberate line across the bench, the long glass thermometer with its delicate mercury thread, the thick-walled beaker that can hold heat without shattering, the fine mesh strainer with its wire handle, the clean cotton towel folded into a precise square. Each object has a place. Each object waits. You position the glass condenser where the cooling water can circulate through its outer jacket. Tonight you will capture not just tea, but a small measure of aromatic hydrosol, the volatile apple honey essence that rises first when heat meets herb. You trace the spiral coil with your eyes, following the glass as it curves inward and then out again, a continuous helix designed to slow vapor and let it transform. The structure is beautiful in its function, clear and purposeful. You connect the inlet tube to the cool water source, checking the seal with your fingertips. You open the valve slightly, and a thin stream begins to run through the glass jacket, creating a sound like a quiet brook over smooth stones. You glance up. The skylight shows the same stars, now positioned differently, their slow procession continuing. In the condenser, their reflections appear as soft points along the wet glass, distorted and multiplied by the curves of the coil. You rest your palms on the edge of the workbench and feel the solid wood beneath your hands, cool and steady. The kettle begins to whisper more insistently. You watch for the first curl of steam, the point where water remembers it can become air, not a rolling boil, which would be too aggressive, too loud, but a gentle steam that rises in soft clouds. You adjust the heat, turning the dial to hold the water at this threshold. You bring the bowl of bruised chamomile to the vessel. As the hot water meets the herb, there is an immediate bloom of scent, a cloud of apple and honey that rises and spreads through the room. You pour slowly, watching the flowers float and then begin to settle, their petals releasing tiny bubbles as air escapes. The water darkens from clear to pale gold almost instantly, the color leaching out of the dried flowers like light through stained glass. You cover the vessel loosely, allowing steam to escape while keeping the heat concentrated. You guide the first steam toward the condenser inlet, watching as it enters the glass spiral and begins its transformation. Inside the coil, water vapor condenses into liquid, forming clear beads that gather on the inner walls of the glass. The beads grow, stretching downward under their own weight, hesitating at the curve of the spiral, then releasing to run down in tiny rivulets. The pattern repeats: gather, hold, release, gather, hold, release. You watch the rhythm. Your breathing slows to match it. You notice how the condensation beads catch the lamplight, becoming small lenses that fracture amber into softer tones. You stir the steeping chamomile once with a long glass rod, feeling the slight resistance of the flowers suspended in water. You check the temperature by holding your hand near the vessel, sensing warmth without needing numbers. You adjust the lid, allowing a wisp of steam to escape and join the humid air of the stillroom. You look up. The stars are visible through the skylight, and now they are also duplicated in the wet glass of the condenser spiral, drifting slowly as condensation forms and falls, forms and falls. You tend the process with small movements. You check the flow of cooling water, ensuring it runs steady but not fast. You wipe a drop of condensation from the outside of the beaker. You shift your weight from one foot to the other, feeling the floor solid beneath you. The room fills with scent and soft sound, the whisper of steam, the quiet trickle of cooling water, the occasional tick of copper as it expands and contracts with heat. These sounds layer into something that is not quite music but has pattern, a rhythm you can follow without effort. You notice your jaw has unclenched completely. You notice the way your hands rest on the counter without gripping, palms open. You let the infusion steep. Time becomes elastic, measured not by the clock but by the gradual deepening of color in the beaker, by the slow drift of stars across the skylight, by the number of breaths you take without counting them. The chamomile yields what it has to give. In the condenser, a few precious drops of hydrosol gather in the collection vial, clear and intensely aromatic, a concentration of summer and sweetness that will scent your pillow for nights to come. When the infusion has steeped long enough, you turn off the heat. The change is immediate and subtle. The steam begins to thin, the whisper quiets, the room shifts from active to settling. You remove the vessel from the heating element and place it on the cool stone countertop, feeling the temperature difference through the glass, warmth giving way to stone's patient cold. You wait while the liquid settles, watching the surface grow still and glassy, watching the last wisps of steam become invisible. The room breathes with you. The copper kettle ticks as it cools, metal contracting in small increments, each tick a tiny announcement of change. Beyond the walls there is the distant hush of the city, filtered and softened into a continuous low note that asks nothing. The cooling water in the condenser continues its thin thread, and you realize you have been listening to this sound for so long it has become part of silence. You look up through the skylight. The constellation that was near the center when you began has now drifted to the far edge of the frame, a slow clock that measures time without urgency or judgment. You seal the collection vial with its glass stopper, feeling the satisfying friction of ground glass finding its seat. You rinse the glass stirring rod under cool water, feeling the transition from warm to cold, the slick cleanliness of glass beneath your fingers. You fold the towel again, aligning its edges with quiet precision. When the vessel has cooled enough to handle comfortably, you prepare to separate and collect. You set the fine mesh strainer over the thick glass beaker, checking that it sits level and secure. You lift the steeping vessel with both hands, feeling its warmth, and you pour slowly. The liquid passes through the mesh with a sound like fabric sliding over silk, a soft susurrus that fills the space between breaths. You watch the color deepen in the beaker, pale gold, slightly cloudy at first with suspended particles, then clarifying as gravity pulls the heavier elements down and the liquid settles into transparency. The spent chamomile remains in the strainer, a damp, compressed cake of flowers that have given everything they can give. You lift the strainer and let the last drops fall, watching them elongate and break, elongate and break. The aroma rises one final time from the spent herb, a softer version of the earlier bloom, apple and honey fading into hay and earth. You set the strainer aside and hold the beaker with both hands, feeling the gentle warmth spread into your palms and travel up your wrists, into your forearms, a slow radiating comfort. You begin the gentle cleanup, allowing this closing of the workspace to be part of the ritual rather than a hurried return to disorder. You carry the strainer to the sink and rinse it under cool water, watching the pale stream carry the spent flowers away, their work complete. You turn off the cooling water to the condenser, and the thin trickling sound stops, leaving a deeper layer of quiet. You wipe the condenser coil with a soft cloth, clearing the last beads of water, watching the glass return to perfect clarity. The star reflections diminish as the surface dries, but the stars themselves remain steady in the skylight above. You return the cedar tray to its shelf, running your hand once more across its smooth surface. You sweep the few stray stems and petals into the small compost bin, hearing the dry whisper one last time. You fold the linen towel with care, matching corner to corner, and hang it back on its hook. You wipe the stone counter with a damp cloth, removing the faint dust and small spills, restoring the surface to clean simplicity. You look up. The skylight holds the stars without comment. With the room returned to order, you carry the beaker to the window. You unlatch the catch and push the window open a few inches, feeling the night air spill in, cool and clean. You bring the beaker close to your face but do not drink yet. You inhale. The steam that rises is apple soft, honeyed, warm against your cheeks and nose. The scent is gentler now, comfort rather than intensity, an invitation rather than an announcement. You take the first sip. The temperature is perfect. No longer hot enough to scald but warm enough to spread through your chest like a slow sunrise. You taste apple, honey, hay, and beneath those familiar notes, something earthier, greener, the taste of stems and roots and the soil they grew in. You take another sip, smaller this time, letting the liquid rest on your tongue before swallowing. You feel the warmth travel down your throat, into your stomach, radiating outward. You stand at the window, looking out at the slice of night you can see. The city is a distant hum, soft lights scattered like fallen stars. The air that enters through the window is cool on your face, creating a gentle contrast with the warmth of the tea in your hands. You breathe in the night. You breathe out the day. You look up one last time through the skylight. The same stars are there, but they have traveled across the frame, marking the passage of time you spent in the circular process of preparing chamomile. From sorting to bruising, from warming to steaming, from cooling to collecting, each step following the next in an order as reliable as the stars themselves. You notice a faint reflection of starlight in the surface of your tea, a tiny constellation floating in the pale gold liquid, bending when you move the beaker, steadying when you hold still. You take another sip, then another. The beaker grows lighter in your hands as the tea disappears in small increments. You are not measuring how much is left or counting sips. You are simply here, in this room, at this window, with this warmth spreading through you and this cool air touching your face. When the tea is nearly gone, you set the beaker on the windowsill. Your hands rest, open and relaxed, on the cool stone. Your breath has found a natural rhythm that requires no attention, matching the quiet of the room, the distant city hush, the memory of the condenser's gentle drip and the whisper of steam. The chamomile's warmth remains in your chest and stomach, a presence that asks nothing, offers everything. The stars continue their slow drift across the skylight. The still room holds you in its ordered calm. The copper rests, cooled and quiet. The glass is clear. The cedar waits. You do not need to do anything more. The process is complete. The circle has closed. Your attention loosens, drifting like steam, like light caught in glass, like condensation gathering and releasing, ready to settle wherever it needs to go, ready to rest. Thank you for spending this time with the Night Sky Reader. May your night be peaceful. Until next time, rest well.